guys, what's up? So welcome to the last lesson of Unit 7, which is going to be 7.5, and we're dealing with something called the distance formula. We're going to be finding the distance between 2 points on a coordinate grid. So let's jump into that. So the first thing I want to show you is the actual distance formula. And right now the distance formula is going to be d, which stands for distance, and then is going to be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y squared. So if I look here, x1 and y1 are going to be my first coordinates, and x2 and y2 are going to be my second coordinates. So you would just plug those in and then solve for it, and it actually ended up giving you your value here. So we're going to take our distance formula and we're going to take our examples, and I'm going to show you guys how to do this. All right, guys, so now first on example number 1, Unit 7 has all been about Pythagorean theorem and solving the side of a right triangle. So what I want to show you is the reason why we did distance formula at the end of this is because technically the distance formula is just Pythagorean theorem, and I'm going to show you why. So right now it says on number 1, what is the distance from A to B? So if I actually draw a straight line from A to B, okay, I'm going to do my better job of doing that. So if I draw a straight line from A to B, I need to find that distance. And so if you actually look, if I draw the distance over and the distance up, it's actually going to end up creating a right triangle. So now in order for me to find the distance, I'm actually doing Pythagorean theorem. So now in order for me to find the distance from here to here, I'm actually going to end up finding the difference. So x2 minus x1. From here to here, I'm going to find the difference to get that side, so I'm going to do y2 minus y1. And that's basically how the formula works out. So this would be the value c. So if I actually work off Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, if I wanted to find the c value, I would take the square root of both sides. And when this happens, I'm going to be left with c is equal to the square root of a squared plus b squared. And that's technically what I'm doing here. So right now the distance from 1 to 7 is going to be 6. The distance from 1 to 9 is going to be 8. So now if I just plug those into, that's what my formula says. If I just plug those in, 6 squared plus 8 squared is going to end up giving me 100. And the square root of 100 is going to give me 10. So the distance from A to B is going to end up being 10 using my distance formula. So right now, this is a generic thought of how the distance formula is used because all it is Pythagorean theorem. So I'm finding the difference between these 2 points, finding the difference between these 2 points, and I'm plugging them into Pythagorean theorem. So right now, this is how the thought process using Pythagorean theorem works on this. Now I'm going to show you how to do it using the points. Okay, let's look at example number 2. All right, so on example number 2, it says, what is the distance from C to D? So I know if I'm finding the distance, I'm going to be using the formula up top here. So the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out my coordinates. So right now on D, I have the coordinates 1, 5. So D is going to be 1, 5. And then the coordinates for C are going to be 2, -2. So this is going to be 2, -2. And so just so you know, the x1, y1, and all that, it doesn't matter which one you make it as long as you label it. So I'm going to go ahead and make C my 1s, and I'm going to make C my 2s, so x2, y2. And so now all I have to do is plug it into my formula. So again, my distance formula is going to be D is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So that's going to be my distance formula. The distance on the bottom and the distance on the side, and then that's going to end up giving me my hypotenuse, which that's what I'm finding from D to C. So let's go ahead and plug this in. So my distance is going to equal to the square root, x2 is 1, x1 is going to be 2, x1 is going to be 1 squared, plus y2 is 5, minus y2, which is -2, squared. And so now if you look, my double negative here is actually going to turn into plus here, okay? So 2 minus 1 is going to end up giving me 1. Then 5 plus 2 is going to end up giving me 7. 1 squared is going to end up giving me 1. 7 squared is going to end up giving me 8, okay? Or sorry, 7 squared is going to give me 49. Why did I put that? And now 1 plus 49 is going to be the square root of 50. So technically speaking, my distance is going to equal to the square root of 50 here, okay? And so now I can actually simplify this further. I can leave it in radical form because I know 25 can go into 50 twice. So the square root of 25, the square root of 2, 25 times 2 is 50. The square root of 25 can be 5 and then square root 2. So I can leave it in radical form, or I can type it in my calculator and I can put it in decimal form. So right now, looking here, if I do 5 times the square root of 2, that's going to end up giving me 7.07 roughly. So about 7.7 would be my distance from D to C. So again, I got to take my two coordinates, label them x1, y1, x2, y2, plug them into my formula, and then simplify it out, okay? So then I can leave it in radical form, or I can write it as a decimal, ladies and gentlemen. So the distance from D to C is going to be either one of these answers, depending on what it asks for. Let's jump over to example number 3. Now last on example number 3, it's giving you two coordinates, not necessarily on a coordinate system or giving you a visual, but it's giving you two coordinates, and all I got to do is find the distance between the two. So right now, again, it doesn't matter which one I label x1, y1. So I'm going to label these my 1s. I'm going to label these my 2s. And then all I got to do is plug it into my formula and then solve for that, correct? Okay, so here we go. So I have the square root of x2, which is going to end up giving me -7, minus x1, which is going to give me 5, plus y2, which is -7, minus y1, which is going to be -9. And I'm squaring that, okay? So -7 minus 5 is going to end up giving me -12. -7 minus 9 is going to end up giving me -16. And then so now -12 times -12 is going to end up giving me 144. And then 16 times 16 is going to end up giving me 256. And if I add those together, so 144 and 256, that's going to give me 400 in here. And then the square root of 400 is going to end up giving me 20. So the final answer for the first one is going to be a solid answer of 20. Okay? So now let's do the same one on my next example here. So I have 3, 8, and 9, 10. So again, it doesn't matter how I label them. So I'm going to label these my 1s. I'm going to label these my 2s. It should be x2, y2. And then I'm going to plug them in my formula up top. So on my formula up top, I have the square root of x2, which is 9, minus x1, which is 3 squared, plus y2 minus y1 squared. So 9 minus 3 is going to give you 6. 10 minus 8 is going to give you 2. 6 squared is going to end up giving you 36. 2 squared is going to end up giving you 4. 36 plus 4 is going to end up giving you 40. And so now, again, there's not a perfect square of 40. So I can leave it in radical form by taking out a 4. So that would end up turning into square root of 4 square root of 10, which would turn into 2 square root 10. So I could leave it in radical form. Or if I type the square root of 40 in the calculator, I would then get a decimal, which would give me 6.32. So either answer would suffice depending on what question you're answering. Sometimes it'll ask for the radical form. Sometimes it'll ask you to put it in decimal form. They mean the same thing, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, this is a brief explanation on how to use the distance formula. And that's example number 3. All right, so now guys, remember, this is your challenge question. Your challenge question is a determination on if you're ready to move on to the skill check. If you can answer this question on your own and get a valid answer, then you're ready to move on. If you struggle with it, call me over. I can come help you out, and hopefully we can get you going on that skill check. Good luck.